Let's just say XRP decides to, all of a sudden, they replace SWIFT. Let's say that happens. If XRP replaces SWIFT and FedNow, you know what happens? Let me give you some numbers here. XRP's ledger processes transactions in 3 to 5 seconds at nearly no cost, making it significantly faster and cheaper than SWIFT. So, SWIFT processes $5 trillion daily, or 1.25 quadrillion annually. If you didn't know what that was, quadrillion annually, SWIFT. If XRP captures 5 to 10% of volume, let's just say 10% of volume, $125 trillion annually. The demand for XRP, by the way, could be any of these other technologies we're talking about. Analysts estimate that a $10 trillion market cap could push XRP's price to $100 per token, with full replacement potentially driving it up to $1,000.
There have been numerous conspiracy theories circling the internet about Ripple and XRP replacing SWIFT and even becoming the new IMF, going all the way back to Operation Phoenix in 1988, with several different rebrands throughout the years, and now it's returning under a completely different name, exactly as predicted over 30 years later. And so in this video, we're going to uncover exactly what the Phoenix said in 1988, word for word. CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse's very interesting background here, how he's been working on the Phoenix early on in his career, what this has to do with the Great Reset and the stock market hitting its most expensive valuation of all time, global liquidity compared to the crypto market, one cryptocurrency that is repeating history, and if everything goes according to plan, could explode within the next few weeks. So buckle up, because we have an amazing video for you guys today. We're talking about the entire altcoin market, XRP, the US dollar price chart, and if Ripple is really going to become the new IMF, or if XRP is more likely to go to zero. So you guys are going to love this video. As always, comment 777 if you're feeling blessed, if you're feeling bullish, and if you're going to become the first millionaire in your family tree. Confirm it by tapping the subscribe button. Let's run it. Do you love crypto, but are you worried about taxes shrinking your retirement nest egg? Here's the deal. Trading and selling crypto can trigger capital gains taxes, eating into your wealth. A crypto IRA fixes that. Per IRS publication 590B, traditional IRA gains like those from crypto aren't taxed until distributed. That's why we've partnered with iTrust Capital, a leading crypto IRA company in the USA, to sponsor today's video. And they offer institutional grade custody for retail clients that want to set up their crypto IRAs for retirement, leveraging top storage solutions like Fidelity, Wells Fargo, and Coinbase Prime to keep your assets secure. To get started, simply click the link in the description of this video, sign up for free, and fund your account with cash. They also offer 401k rollovers or crypto transfers, and you can trade 24/7 with just 1% transaction fees and no maintenance costs. As always, I'm not a CPA or financial advisor, so consult one for tax advice, and we do earn a commission if you sign up using our link below to fund your crypto IRA account, but that helps support value-based videos like this. And iTrust Capital already has over 200,000 crypto IRA accounts and over $14 billion in transactions, proving they're trusted by smart investors just like you. So click the link below, get started now by funding your account today, and let's create generational wealth together.
Markets like Japan, I think, are still unlocking. The market opportunity here is massive. You have trillions of dollars flowing cross-border globally. It's still largely dominated by the SWIFT network, if you will. And that's architecture, that's a technology architecture that's developed 50 years ago. There's an opportunity to modernize. That takes time, particularly when you have a government in the U.S. kind of combating that innovation. But that's changing now. The Trump effect, if you will, is profound. You're seeing that in asset prices, but you're also going to see that in the adoption of these technologies.
Yeah, and I think, so when you're looking at the growth story then of Ripple, does it still come from overseas, or are you expecting a change in terms of domestic interest in Ripple?
Well, we're definitely already seeing a change in the domestic interest. The 6 weeks after President Trump was elected, we signed more deals in the United States than we had in the previous 6 months. So these are very innovative technologies. I think they're going to play out over 10, even 20 years in terms of how they integrate and rewire the financial infrastructure of the United States. That's across payments. That's across even the settlement of maybe real estate transactions, securities transactions. So I think we're going to see this play out over a long arc. But in the United States is finally unlocked, and I think people are underestimating how big that change is, and you'll see that continue to play out this year.
All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So as Ripple continues to make strategic partnerships, we need to dive into the critical details that you need to know, because you've obviously seen this clip already, and you fully understand the use case of XRP as a bridge currency because
Ripple's going after SWIFT.
And if you look at organizations like the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, they are a specialized agency of the United Nations that's headquartered in Washington, D.C. They have 191 member countries, and their mission statement is working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, and reduce poverty around the world. So the IMF acts as a lender of last resort to its member countries experiencing actual or potential balance of payment crises. Now, they've been around since 1944, and for the first 30 years of their existence, they oversaw the Bretton Woods system. So they were formed to completely restructure the international monetary system after the war. And after Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard in 1971, the IMF's role shifted to managing balance of payment difficulties and international financial crises through what's called a quota system, where countries contribute funds to a pool from which they can borrow if they experience balance of payments problems. So the agreement at the Bretton Woods implied that both the IMF and the World Bank would be headquartered in the United States. So the IMF was one of the key organizations of the international economic system designed to basically rebuild the country focusing on capitalism. And so we've seen a major shift in the IMF over the years, and by the mid-2000s, the IMF lending was at its lowest share of world GDP since the 1970s. So what we're witnessing right now with companies like Ripple and different blockchain tech is a passing of the torch to a new digital economy. So Christine Lagarde didn't just leave the IMF, she left Ripple in the IMF, because Ripple has been inside the IMF boardroom for years. From secret advisory groups to tokenization pilots, Ripple is the IMF's new settlement system. So here's the truth that they haven't let out to the general public. So Christine Lagarde previously served as the 11th managing director of the IMF from 2011 to 2019. In 2011, Christine Lagarde told the world that the IMF would need to reinvent itself for a digital future.
One of the main topics up there was cryptocurrencies and all sorts of companies now getting into this effort, not least among them Facebook. What kind of threat does this pose to the traditional banking system?
Well, I think you have incumbents, the banks, commercial banks, and you have the disruptors. And clearly the disruptors are having an impact on the incumbents. We just heard a very large systemic bank here saying that they're launching their digital coin, currently piloted in a way within the institutional clients, but to be scaled beyond that.
And since she's left the IMF and joined the European Central Bank, I found this document right here talking about their exploratory work on new technologies for wholesale central bank money settlement. And if you do a Command F function, you search the word XRP, it's mentioned 6 different times in here. Talking about different scenarios, like scenario 1, a primary issuance of debt securities in settlement, and talks about a node that sends asset amounts from issuers' operational wallets to a created escrow wallet, which uses XRP payment transaction. And the transaction contains the address of the final receiver through the investor wallet with an amount to charge them, an amount to transfer to the final beneficiary, and then basically just explains the rest of the process. And the final step is the operator transfers the amount of the asset from the escrow wallet to the final investor's wallet using XRP payment transaction and thus finalizing the DVP. And right here on the flow chart, you can see each investor, there's about 4 of them from Bank A, and you have a Ministry of Finance here, the issuer agent, Bank B, and then you have all bids going to the government debt securities auction issuer through the Ministry of Finance. And then we have the escrow wallets right here. We got the end investor 1 and investor 2 through Bank A, and it's literally saying they're using XRP. So they've been running these payment pilots with Ripple's technology and XRP for years. And buried in the IMF advisory groups are Ripple executives. For example, in these pictures, I even showed this in my video yesterday. You guys can see here Jessie Chang. Right here, she used to work for Ripple and she's a part of the IMF FinTech Council, quietly being placed on the IMF's highest level. And you guys saw this picture right here in this meeting where Brad was basically breaking down the technology to the director of monetary markets at the IMF, the chairman of the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, the chief executive of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, and then we have other executives in the room who are facing the opposite direction. Plus at Trump's meeting at the White House, look at who's sitting at the far end of the table right here, alongside Chainlink CEO, who's just right next to him. These are all closed-door meetings, and Brad has a seat at the table. So this sets the stage for what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, because at the exact same time, the IMF was discussing the need for a digital SDR, which is a blockchain-based special drawing right that could replace the dollar as a world reserve. So what blockchain could settle cross-border payments instantly? And what ledger is ISO 222 native? Well, that's the XRP ledger. And we all know that the BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now Saudi Arabia, have been talking about diversification away from the dollar. The IMF has been pushing for a new SDR. The ECB has been building tokenized rails with pilot projects and ongoing testing of Ripple's technology. So these have just been different headlines, but one hidden backbone. The XRP ledger has already been tested by the BRICS. Ripple has been building the silent bridge. If you look at these documents here that we've been uncovering on this channel, this is all public information, but average everyday people don't look this stuff up because, I mean, why would they? They don't have a brand, they don't have a YouTube channel, but because this is what we do for a living, our goal is to bring you guys the best information and the facts. And so back in 2019, the BRICS Business Council formed a working group studying the possibility of creating a special trade facilitating BRICS cryptocurrency to ensure uninterrupted paperless document flow. Now, I covered this in the past, but it's important I talk about this because they decided that there's no need to create a new currency for document flow. But more importantly, they talked about this right here. The funds between smart contracts needing to execute the contract can be temporarily pre-stored in a linked virtual escrow-like account associated with the contract to guarantee fund availability at the time of execution. And so then they referenced the XRP Ledger 2020. Same thing as the IMF did. They're talking about escrow wallets, which uses XRP to make payments and facilitate the transaction. And this document right here, guys, is from none other than the European Central Bank. And the European Central Bank, by the way, has a balance sheet of around $6 trillion. And they're one of the world's most important central banks, functioning as the core of the euro system.
Digital currency is what I'm referring to. I tell you, what we are seeing, development into new technologies that will actually change the way in which intermediation is conducted, eliminate some of the barriers, including the unconscious biases that exist out there. And I think in the banking system at large, in many countries, the difference will not be between those who are disrupted and those who survive, but it will be between those who are cannibalized because they are not seeing it coming and they're not embracing it, and those who self-induce that cannibalization. And I'm using cannibalization on purpose because it's a bit of a striking, horrible word, but it's really what it means. It's you're going to disrupt your business model, you're going to change it, you're going to reduce your costs, you're going to expedite your transactions, and you're going to continue to inspire confidence because you will build that on the basis of an existing backbone, which is your bank and the confidence relationship that you've established with your customers. So that's where I see changes happening now. If you think of Circle and Ripples and all those, that's where they are active and helpful.
So if they've been exploring new technologies for wholesale central bank money settlement, and at the core of their plan is to do exactly what Brad Garlinghouse has been saying, this word right here, if you turn your head sideways, interoperability. And we're also seeing similar documents come out from the BRICS countries together, talking about the potential of cryptocurrencies to completely reshape financial systems and how this will completely reset the banking market. And in 2022, the BRICS nations signed an agreement to develop a common payment platform, which has been expected to be operational by this year. It's not necessarily about whether they're going to replace the dollar or what's going to happen to the dollar. That doesn't matter. It's all about creating an integrated interbank payment system based on all these different currencies out there that these countries are using. Because they were sick and tired of the West, which is the United States, sanctioning their countries. For example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States sanctioned Russia from the SWIFT system, completely blocking them from major banking services that they needed. So we've had Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa strengthening their economic ties with one another and looking to use other currencies for trade, rather than just relying on the US dollar. And so this is going to be accelerated by the ISO 222 messaging standard, where it's only a matter of time, guys, before regional economic blocs experimenting with digital currencies totally bypass usage of the US dollar long term. And if you look closely right here, I thought this is a great post from Stern Drew Crypto. JP Morgan and other giants inside the United States aren't just testing, Ripple's rails, they're testing the credential systems that make it safe for institutions to move. So that's through XLS 70, verifiable credentials, XLS 80, permissioned domains. And this is all part of their new world order that they've been planning for years. Their focused areas have been on these steps right here, building trusted digital identities. And in order to usher those in, they might have some major banks get hacked, leak some sensitive information, and say that the banking technology is too old to protect your privacy and to protect your information. So therefore, here's a solution. They've done this for centuries. It's a planned and an orchestrated problem, which could be leaking customers' information, bank runs, collapses. and then basically presents you the solution that they already have planned and they've already created, so you accept it with open arms, thinking that they're creating something to save you from a problem that they created in the first place. So it's all about digital identities here. And in 2018, Gary Gensler was already teaching about digital IDs at MIT and how identity would be managed on the blockchain. And meanwhile, Christine Lagarde's ECB is piloting tokenized settlement with central banks. So that's debt, bonds, CBDCs, all in a test phase. And in every World Economic Forum plus ECB report, Ripple keeps showing up like a ghost in the machine here. Why? Let me ask you this. Why would they keep referencing Ripple here if they weren't planning on partnering with them or using their technology or using XRP in some way, shape, or form? Where you can see right here on their report about tokenized assets, several firms have already taken steps to tokenize PE investments on the XRP ledger. And right here we have a document from the Central Bank of Nigeria. At the bottom of it, it says, all in-scope institutions must complete migration activities and be fully compliant no later than October 31st, 2025. So they're all migrating here. And by November, this is going to be global. The Federal Reserve migrated in July. And if you look at the choreography here, the SEC lawsuit suppresses the XRP price. The IMF brings Ripple to the table. The European Central Bank runs tokenization pilots. The Bank for International Settlement tests interoperability with RippleNet banks. The World Economic Forum praises the XRP ledger tokenization of debt. DNA Protocol pilots the credential system, which is XLS 7080 for institutions in Wall Street. And yet retail investors or Bitcoin maximalists look at it like, oh, XRP surely or Ripple surely should have lost that lawsuit, not realizing that this has all been a show. This has all been staged. So as you already know, the IMF doesn't print money. That's the Treasury, the Federal Reserve, but it allocates it. Whoever controls the infrastructure of allocation controls the global monetary order. So guess what? Ripple is the plumbing infrastructure of the new crypto financial system. So that's going to include stocks, bonds, real estate, derivatives, tokenization of real-world assets. As Arthur Brito said in my previous video, XRP is going to be the hidden plumbing, and everyday people are just going to ignore it while mainstream media won't say it. In fact, they're going to be discouraged from saying it, and when questioned about it, they're going to get little messages in their earpiece to completely move on from the subject.
How about an XRP ETF? I know you got Ether out there. How about XRP? Can you answer that?
I can't. And you don't want me to.
I do.
Well, I can't.
All right, they're giving me the rap.
But the documents, the meetings, the pilots already reveal all of it. That's why XRP has been suppressed. Not because it's worthless, but because it's priceless. Because the people who know that the IMF, the ECB, the Bank for International Settlements, the World Economic Forum are building a system where XRP is the master key. And if you look at this comment right here from this post talking about the master key, it's also an American fairy tale written in 1901 by the renowned author L. Frank Baum. And if you look up this book right here, The Master Key, written by Frank Baum, well, what did he also write? None other than The Wizard of Oz. Now, if you guys didn't watch my previous videos talking about The Wizard of Oz, if you go to the Gematria calculator, this has just got to be the strangest thing that I've ever seen because we must be living in a movie. If you look up one of the English numbers that come up is The Wizard of Oz, it's Kekius Maximus. Now, Elon Musk changed his name to Kekius Maximus on Twitter a while ago. Why would he choose that name of all names? It also comes up as meaning of numbers, Back to the Future, the movie about time travel, level playing field. What else does it come up as? XRP the Storm, Twin Flame Meeting, see the Wizard of Oz right here, You Were Chosen, Exit the Matrix. And if you look up the master key on the Gematria calculator, it comes up as fight, 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 Donald Trump's famous quote when he almost got assassinated. It also comes up as the big, beautiful bill, Trump train. And the main message behind Wizard of Oz was it was a story of illusion where the wizard was really behind the curtain pulling the strings and he was just a regular man. So we are seeing the illusion of money because as we perceive it in the sense that its value and existence are based on a collective belief rather than its inherent worth, just because simply the government tells you that the dollar or $100 bill is worth something doesn't mean that it actually is. I mean, when you look at the US debt clock, you can see over $37 trillion in debt. And as you already know, because you're very intelligent here, money is mostly digital, existing in numbers and bank accounts, not physical coins or notes. Most of the money is not even in circulation. And fiat currencies like the US dollar aren't backed by tangible assets like gold because Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard in 1971, but it's backed by the trust in the government and the financial system. And that trust is eroded over the years due to inflation, market crashes, or policy changes that have eroded money's perceived value. But everyone treats money as real because society agrees that it's a medium for exchange, even if its reality is more concept than substance. And so this is where, when we go back to 1988, The Economist put out a magazine called The Phoenix for this edition, saying, get ready for a world currency. So this wasn't just a headline, this was a prophecy here. It showed a phoenix rising from a pile of burning fiat currencies here. And it doesn't even look like real fiat currencies. It looks like AI currency. Like the type of currency when you go to Grok or ChatGPT and you say, give me a picture of a pile of money, and then it spits out an image that looks like this, where you can't actually even see what type of currency it is because it's just kind of looks like money, but it's not even real money. And I can pretty much recreate the magazine cover by saying, put a phoenix standing on the pile. Now, a few minor tweaks here and this would look a lot better, but on this image right here, it's hard to see in this picture, but this is a real copy of one. It shows 2018 on the coin, and it shows a 0 with a slash through it. Now, a lot of people have said that this is Stellar XLM's logo, but what if this is actually the US national debt being wiped out? And when you ask Grok about this symbol in the magazine cover, it basically says how it could represent, and it's from a Scandinavian orthography used in Danish and Norwegian, hinting at a broader European or global unification, even 0, nothing to signify the obsolescence of old currencies. So basically, they're worthless, they're worth 0, and that this debt is meaningless and it's all utter nonsense. I mean, how does this make sense? How are you in debt as a country $37 trillion? That just doesn't make any sense. It just means you have unlimited money printer to create something out of thin air. So that can't last forever. There has to be a change. Now, in the actual magazine, this is what it says. 30 years from now, Americans, Japanese, Europeans, and people in many other rich countries and some relatively poor ones will probably be paying for their shopping with the same currency. Prices will be quoted not in dollars, yen, or D-marks, but in, let's say, the Phoenix. Now, as you know, this has been rebranded over the years, and this clip I'm going to play from Brad Garlinghouse is just too strange to call it a coincidence here, because the Phoenix will be favored by companies and shoppers because it will be more convenient than today's national currencies, which by then will seem a quaint cause of much disruption to economic life in the last 20th century. Now, 30 years from this date ended up being what year? Well, that's 2018. Now, if you go to the chart here, what happened in 2018? Well, in January of 2018 is when XRP experienced this giga chad rally here from 0.005 all the way upwards of $3 at the beginning of that year. And then, of course, the price sold off as the whole market went into a bear market. So you can't write that off just based on price action here, because clearly some institutions knew what was going to happen for XRP. So, they bought it up and then they dumped on the market. And this actual dump off can be traced back to like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and some old wallets dealing with PayPal in the past. So that's a whole different video and a whole different concept that we can discuss. But it's the same thing that's happened recently in November when Trump got into office. Why did XRP pump up? It's because certain institutions, certain major financial players know what's coming for XRP in the long term. And it's basically saying the Phoenix rises in 2018. Now, what rose in 2018? XRP's price. But the real resurrection would come later because of the bear market that we had to go through, the SEC suppression saga. So the Phoenix wasn't just a symbol, it was a message. A new global financial order is coming. Fiat currencies will burn. One digital currency will rise. And behind it all is the IMF, the Bank for International Settlements, the European Central Bank, and other central banks all around the world. And so why Ripple, why XRP? Well, Ripple has worked with 100+ banks. They're tied to the IMF and World Bank pilot programs. They're recognized by the BIS as a potential liquidity bridge. David Schwartz discussed global bridge currency use cases as far back as 2011, and he even has patents going back to before Bitcoin was created. He worked for the National Security Agency. The National Security Agency created a document called How to Make a Mint, the cryptography of anonymous electronic cash, in 1996, all before Bitcoin and crypto was ever even a thing. Guys, they have been planning this for decades. This isn't just random here. And if you want to talk about industry plants in the music industry, well, let's look at Brad Garlinghouse here as in terms of an industry plant in the financial industry. Let's look at his career, because from 2003 to 2008, he served as the senior vice president at Yahoo, where he ran its homepage. And after Yahoo, he then went on to become the president of consumer applications at AOL from 2009 to 2011. He then joined Ripple as COO in April of 2015, and then now has become the CEO of Ripple. And if you watch this video right here that was actually posted 5 years ago on Crypto Mike's channel, go check it out here. This is an early interview with Brad Garlinghouse. Listen to this.
We invited a bunch of media in from across really the tech industry, as well as some key partners, to talk about what a different company AOL is today. And instead of doing the standard kind of walking people through a PowerPoint deck, we decided to tell our story on whiteboards. And so I thought I'd show you some of the cool stuff the team did. One of the things we started by doing is talking about how different AOL today is as a company. And one of the best kind of tangible examples of that is how our brand has changed, how the logo of the company has changed. And so some of the designers here in Palo Alto built a mural just with various funny items, what's going on, kind of inside jokes occasionally, and then we obviously put the AOL brand on top of it. But we use this as kind of a metaphor in talking with the press and partners about how different AOL is and how much the brand has changed. The brand also has huge brand recognition. And so we talked about how we are investing in the brand. And one of the key things, and we did the kind of White House, we're walking. One of the things we did to talk about that is how the brand of any company is really at the heart, and it's a reflection of the products they build. And the products you build are a reflection of the people you employ. So then talked about kind of some major changes, moving into the Palo Alto office, the Thing Labs, Brisley joining the team here, our work on Phoenix, which continues to be in kind of alpha/beta, and
our work on Phoenix, which continues to be in kind of alpha/beta.
And I'll skip some of this just to keep this short, but
now, what would be needed to usher in everything that we've just talked about? Well, it would be a great reset. It would be a major collapse, because if you look at this right here, the US stock market hit its most expensive valuation in history, surpassing the dot-com bubble in the run-up to the Great Depression. Now, obviously, you know, if you're a student of history or if you're just old, you know, you have more life experience than guys like me or young people on this planet. You've been through maybe the 1965 crash, the 1999, the 2008 crash, and you've experienced it firsthand for yourself. Well, we've reached new highs as of August of 2025. Even in my video yesterday, I talked about Google's stock. Look at this. Google is absolutely exploding right now. I mean, it's gone from $139 in April to over $251. It's at an all-time high. The relative strength index on the daily chart is at 87. Overbought conditions. Look at the stochastic RSI. It's at 97 and 97. This does not end well, guys. Go to the weekly chart. The RSI is at 80. The stochastic RSI is at 100 and 100. As overbought as the stochastic RSI can get. So when Google tops out and then inevitably rolls over on the other side, well, some of the smartest economists in today's day and age are comparing Ripple to the early Google days when it was down here around $3. And over the next decade or two, we're going to see XRP go on this legendary run for this new financial upgrade. So don't you find it weird that the economists came out with the Phoenix, get ready for a world currency in 1988? Brad Garlinghouse was working on the Phoenix, and now it's being rebranded? Because the Phoenix is really a metaphor or a representation of what's coming. It's not the actual name. You can't take things so literally here. But when you connect the dots, it's just too strange to call it a coincidence. Plus, you look at gold hitting a new all-time high. Central banks are preparing for what's coming. You know, China's central bank has been accumulating more gold than ever before, even silver. I told you guys about silver a while back and how it would explode, and now silver is nearing its new all-time high again. Or its old all-time high to create a new all-time high. And global M2 money supply has been hitting all-time highs. So Bitcoin is lagging behind for now. The crypto market is lagging behind. And if you look at gold relative to Bitcoin, gold is in orange, Bitcoin is in green. Gold is making the move first, and then Bitcoin is going to follow closely behind. But also another cryptocurrency that is repeating history is this one right here, and that's Ethereum. And you guys know what happens when Ethereum starts to break out. That's like the bat signal for Altseason, because Ethereum is right behind Bitcoin as the second largest currency. And if you look at these two charts side by side, well, this breakout right here on the 9th of July for a total two on the left-hand side of the screen from 1.15 trillion to $1.5 trillion was due to Ethereum rallying from $2,500 all the way up to $4,000. Also from XRP rallying from $2.30 all the way up here to $3.70. So XRP and Ethereum, you know, are the two main cryptocurrencies that caused this massive breakout for the market. And if you look at total two on the left-hand side of the screen, what's happening right now? Well, it's consolidating right here on top of these highs, on top of this high of December of 2024, and even going all the way back to the previous high of 2021. It's just sitting right here. And so what everyone's waiting for is this major move back into price discovery somewhat similar to what happened all the way back here in 2021, where then Total 2 broke out and it just dwarfed the previous high back here. So look at 2021 compared to the past, when we were just sitting right around these levels, and what happened when we finally did explode to the upside. Total 2 is everything other than Bitcoin. So the large caps are going to, like the top 10, are going to absorb the majority of that liquidity, and then it's going to rotate into everything outside the top 10. So that's where you get others on the right-hand side of the screen lagging behind Total 2. So global liquidity leads, Bitcoin follows, then Ethereum, XRP, and the other large caps, and then that rotation takes place into everything outside of the top 10 at the tail end of the bull run. And because we're still down here at these levels that we were at, after this sell-off back here in December of 2024 during this A, B, C corrective wave at the bottom, now we're consolidating for others right at this level. And if we look at Total 2, well, maybe right here or right here before we experience the next move up, I would expect when Total 2 breaks into price discovery, if that were to happen, then others to catch up and go back to the previous high that we were at in December of 2024. And when Total 2 makes the move into price discovery, that's when XRP would make the move as well too, past its all-time high of $3.60. Because right now, XRP just experienced a trend reversal, and I covered this in our accelerator call inside of Altcoin Pro University. We broke this downtrend here, and I've seen this time and time again because I've been in crypto for nearly 10 years, watching the charts almost every single day. When you see these trend reversals take place and you see the price break out from a downtrend of a series of, lower highs and lower lows, this was relatively equal lows. And if you want to get super technical here, this wick was a lower low than this wick right here in August of this year. And so we've been in a downtrend for XRP since 18th of July with these lower highs and lower lows until just recently. We just put in a higher high than this high right here. And so when we see these breakouts, we put in a higher high, then we experience a higher low, and then we continue the trend reversal in a new bullish channel before we experience a major breakout for XRP. Now, if this doesn't happen and we go into a bear market, well then cool, you just have a better accumulation point to accumulate XRP. But I don't know, man. I just don't see XRP coming back down to 50 cents. And if that were to happen, I would basically sell everything that I have and try and buy as much as possible, because this is just too obvious of a play over the next 10 years. Just like how Google was all the way back here in the early days of the internet. It just took time to appreciate, right? Now Google's sitting over $250. So is it possible for XRP, like what Patrick said at the beginning of this video, to hit $100? Yeah, it's definitely possible. Google hit $100. It went from $3 to $100. Is it possible for XRP to hit $1,000? I think it's possible. Will it happen at the end of this year? Well, I don't think so. I'd be shocked if it did. I mean, that'd be incredible. But nonetheless, the key players have been positioning themselves for years because the writing is on the wall. So if you hold any XRP, you're literally giving up an additional 3 to 5% monthly yield just by holding your XRP on exchanges like Coinbase, Crypto.com, or even Binance. And you're being lazy. You're taught to hodl and just hold and wait for price appreciation. But this strategy is a terrible approach to create passive income in crypto, and here's why. If you look at XRP since January of earlier this year, it is at the exact same price that it's been for 240 days or nearly 8 months. Even if you bought Ethereum back here in November of 2021, it's at the exact same price nearly 4 years later. Or even investors who have been holding Solana since November of 2021. It's over 1,400 days. And even when you look at these long, boring consolidation phases for any crypto asset where they don't do anything for months on end, even dropping even 20, 30, 40, or upwards of 50%, while inflation is just eating your money alive if you're holding cash. I'm not saying they're bad investments or it doesn't make sense to hold, especially cryptocurrencies of the future like XRP. So our team teaches people how to earn yield with their idle crypto each and every single day by capitalizing on the top DeFi yields in the crypto space today. And it's as if you bought a beautiful beachfront property, or multiple properties for that matter, and you're not renting them out to people who are willing to spend good money earning you passive income. So you believe cryptocurrencies like XRP and other altcoins are going to go up in value over time. That's why you're holding them, but yet you refuse to rent in tenants, earning passive income on your crypto. Oh, and you thought it was a good idea to trust your crypto wealth on an exchange like Coinbase. Well, did you know? Well, they actually got hacked and released names, addresses, phones, and emails, and even government issued IDs and account data like balance snapshots, transaction history. and even blackmailing the CEO, asking for income in exchange to not release your personal information.
I want to make you aware of a disturbing email that we received recently at Coinbase. It was a ransom note demanding $20 million in Bitcoin in exchange for these attackers not releasing some information they claim to have obtained on our customers. I'm going to respond publicly to these attackers by saying no. We are not going to pay your ransom.
And in May of 2025, Coinbase said over 69,000 customers were initially impacted by the breach, and they were hacked for over $400 million. So not only are you getting eaten up by inflation just holding cash in a bank, but you're also leaving thousands of dollars in free yield on the table, while also putting yourself in a position to lose all of your funds through exchange hacks. You remember this guy right here from FTX? Yeah, let's not even go down that rabbit hole. It was the exact same situation. It was everywhere on the news. You already understand this. Look, you can't afford to be lazy with your capital, especially with the US drowning in over $37 trillion in national debt. You need to have insurance against the system here. That's why we at Altcoin Pro University here focus on helping people like you become their own bank. We get way better returns that are not only safe and predictable, but we have hundreds of people all around the world taking advantage of these strategies, no matter their cryptocurrency experience. Because regardless how long you've been in the crypto market, whether this is your first bull run or you've been in the industry for years, our goal is to help 1,000 members this month uncover these secret strategies in the crypto market by applying our proven methods, using the digital assets like XRP and other altcoins that they already hold in their portfolio. And if you click the link in the description of this video, you can hear from some of the people that we've helped. And that's why I can guarantee that you will make more money by becoming your own bank than just letting your crypto sit on an exchange like Coinbase, doing nothing with it. So if you want more information on how we're helping people from all around the globe earn passive income on their crypto, then simply click the link in the description below, watch this 13-minute video right here on how exactly we do it. And you'll discover how to maximize your opportunity in crypto while minimizing your downside. Because what our research team teaches are the most powerful ways to be able to earn yield on your crypto while still holding them for the long term.